Hello and welcome friends to this unit 3 in management information system. Here in this particular unit we'll be discussing the information system planning and the various related topics. We'll also be talking about the system approach to information system planning, right? So this is going to be the agenda in this particular unit. So let us start discussion on what basically we mean by information system planning. I hope you know that plans are prepared for the short term and the medium term and the long term. So here we'll be talking about the planning for information system, and we'll be taking into account all these three different time frames. So we'll be talking about the long term, which is more than 5 years, 7 years, the middle term, the medium term, which is around 2 years, 3 years, and the short term plans also, which are made for maybe 1 year or a shorter time frame, right? So let us talk about how you plan your information systems for the long run, for the longer time frame, longer time period. I hope you understand that planning for the longer time frame is known as strategic planning, and that is why we are calling this strategic information system planning. And what are we going to do here? We are going to plan for the longer time frame, 5 years, 7 years, or maybe 10 years also, right? So what all things we'll be taking into consideration while doing this strategic long-term planning? We'll have to basically decide what kind of information system architecture we are going to use. What would be the hardware and software configuration, what types of hardware and softwares, because naturally you cannot purchase hardware on a daily basis. Once you have invested in purchasing hardware, you would at least want that hardware to continue serving you for at least 5-7 years, right? So you are basically here, when you are deciding which particular hardware and software to purchase and what all configurations to go for, you are basically planning for the longest term, 5-7 years. What kind of database, how to manage the database. We have talked about the database architectures also, database structures also. So what kind of database, and how do you store this database? What all storage devices will be required? What communication technologies are you going to make use of? So let's say if you've got two different offices, are you going to connect them through the use of some kind of a telephone lease line? I hope we have discussed this when we talked about the modulator, demodulator. So are these branches going to be connected by the telephone lease line, or are they going to be connected in the wireless mode through the satellite communication, the VSAT connectivity, very small aperture terminal connectivity? We have discussed that also. So what exactly are you going to make use of? Because it may not be possible for you to make any changes in these kind of decisions once you have invested your money. Once you have gone for the VSAT and you've installed all the VSATs, would it be possible for you, or would it make sense, would it be cost effective for you to switch to telephone lease lines 6 months down the line? No, not possible. It's a huge investment, and that is why we are talking about the strategic information system planning, right? And then what would be the information system processes? How would the systems be developed? How would they be maintained? How would, first of all, you develop the system? What do we mean by this? How do you design the system? And then how do you implement the system? How do you maintain it? What all regular maintenance is required? And then how do you monitor and control the system? Now this is again a long-term plan. What all information system skills are required by the personnel? They would probably need to learn how to enter the data into the system, or the other term for this is data capturing. How do you capture the data? Is it going to be entered by the personnel manning a particular desk, or is it going to be captured automatically using some machines? For example, the camera capturing some information and then making use of it, or the barcode scanner captures this information. We have discussed this example also in organized retail shops, and it captures information about how many products, how many brands, in what sizes belonging to which particular firm were sold in a particular day, how frequently the product is getting sold. So it will capture all such data. So you have to plan for these kind of things as well, right? If the data has to be entered, then the personnel would require to be provided this skill. They will have to be provided training. And you also have to plan as to how you are going to make use of these information systems, because naturally they would provide you some information, but then how are you going to understand this information and how are you going to apply it for the business purpose? This also has to be thought through. This has to be given a significant thought right in the beginning, so that you are able to make the best possible use of the information system that you are implementing. Or if you feel that you don't need a particular information or you need a particular information, then you can design your information systems accordingly, right? So this is what you will have to decide in the beginning, and these are the decisions which you will have to then continue with for 5 to 7 years, because these would entail a lot of cost, be it the developing a new system, be it the development of a new system, designing of a new system, be it the purchase of hardware and software, be it the choice of the communication technology. All of them, they entail a huge investment, and naturally you would want to earn something on your investment, which would only happen in the 5 to 7 year time frame. So these are all long-term strategic information system planning. They are all examples of strategic information system planning, right? Now let us talk about the tactical information system planning. Now what do we mean by tactical? We are talking of the medium term, right? Now in the medium term, what we are going to decide, medium term means maybe somewhere around 3 years, 1 year to 3 years to 4 or 5 years. This probably would be known as medium term tactical, and that is why we call them tactical IS planning. Now what would be the budget and the schedule for procurement of hardware, software and related services? Not that we are not deciding here what all hardware and software configurations that we have decided here, but here we are going to go by this particular plan. So we have understood what all hardware and softwares would be required, and now what we are doing is we are basically purchasing that hardware or purchasing that particular software. So this procurement of hardware and software and the related services, this is going to be decided in the tactical IS planning, right? And then since we have decided what all hardware and software to purchase and when to purchase, you are not going to purchase all the hardware right in the beginning, because slowly and slowly, once the IS information system is installed, slowly and slowly it would be ramped up. More and more functions in the organization will be brought under this information system, and then you would require more of this hardware. So you are not going to purchase all the hardware right in the beginning. You would keep on purchasing it every few months or maybe every few years, and that is why we are talking about the schedules for the procurement, and we are also talking about the guidelines for handling the purchase or the system misuse and the security training. So how do you actually handle the purchase of the information system, hardware or software? What if somebody misuses it? Then how do you handle that system misuse? And how do you actually train your personnel to provide security, to ensure that the hardware and the software that you have used for the information system is secure, that the database is secure? So all this has to be decided as the tactical plan. And then we'll move on to the operationalized planning. Now what do we mean? Operation is very, very short term. So what will be the contents of the short term IS planning? The contents would be the system uptime targets. What do we mean by uptime? I hope you remember the discussion in the production operation management. Uptime is the time for which the system is up and running. It is it is performing its functions. And downtime is when the system has broken down, has crashed down, and it requires some maintenance. So naturally you would want to have more of the uptime and less of the downtime. So the system uptime targets would be defined here, Operation IS planning, for how much time at least the system should be working. So this is something that has to be planned, and then breakdown or periodic maintenance also has to be planned. Whether you are going to go for breakdown maintenance when the system has crashed, then only you are going to go and do the rectification, or when on a regular basis are you going to go for periodic maintenance on a regular basis even before the system has crashed down. So you have to decide between the two, and depending on what kind of resources you have and how critical the system is for the business functions, for the organization, you decide how to design the maintenance plan. If you know that the system is very very critical, for example, take example of a bank, it's very very critical for them to have a round the clock IS information system, because even if the information system crashes for 30 minutes, they simply would not be able to perform their functions. You would not be able to allow any customer to withdraw money, because since the information system has broken down, you simply would not have any access to the amount of money in the saving bank account of that particular customer. So you simply cannot allow him to withdraw. You simply cannot do any of the banking transactions. So naturally it is very very critical for them. So rather than going for breakdown maintenance, they would want to go for periodic maintenance, right? So depending on how critical the information system is for your business processes, you decide the maintenance frequency as well and the maintenance approach as well. Now this is going to be the short term or the operational planning, right? Understood? So this is what you will have to probably write when somebody asks you to comment on information system planning for the short and the long range. So this is how you actually plan your information systems, right? Now let us move over to the challenges in information system planning. What all challenges are there in information system planning? Please understand, and we have discussed it many a times, that the environment is very very dynamic. The only thing which is constant is the change itself. So the environment keeps changing, and actually since the environment keeps changing, your information system requirements will also keep changing. In 1990s, banks used to rely less on information systems, less on management information systems, and they used to rely more on manual information systems. But then came the technology, and the banks started moving to management information system, right? And now to survive in the amidst the growing competition, because there is competition from various different banks, some new banks have come up, finance banks are there, payment banks are there, then we have got some foreign banks also coming up, and if they want to survive, they will further have to go for more advanced information systems. So naturally the environment is changing, and your requirement of the information system would also keep changing. So you simply cannot predict as to what would be the requirement 2 years down the line, because the environment is changing so fast that the requirements may also change in 2 years time. So this is number one. First thing is, you simply cannot predict with 100% accuracy as to what would be your IS requirements. Again, information systems shall also require upgrades and modifications. For example, think of an MIS, the IRS information reporting system. So you've got an information reporting system, and you have got pre-designed formats for the reports. And let's assume that you were a bank earlier. You basically are a bank, and now you have also started dealing in insurance products. You also started, which is known as bank assurance. So you have also started selling insurance products. Supposing, I'm just giving an example, don't you think this functionality will have to be included in the transaction processing system and the information reporting system? Yes, now, because earlier naturally you were not selling insurance, so there was no requirement of capturing this data regarding how many insurance products have been sold. But now you need to capture this data also, so naturally the TPS that you already have needs some modification. And since the TPS will now collect data regarding how many insurance products have been sold and what kind of insurance products have been sold, so naturally the reports that will have to be generated by RS, the information reporting system, these reports are also going to be different. So they will have, there would be more number of reports, and the additional reports that will now be generated will capture as the data regarding the sales of insurance products. So the information systems also shall need upgrades and modifications, right? You have seen how expert system keeps on upgrading itself, it's a self-learning kind of a system, because it has a knowledge base to which it applies some rules, and then it discovers a new knowledge or a new pattern, and then this information is fed back into the knowledge base. So in that sense, it's a self-learning system. So information systems shall keep on upgrading themselves. They need to be upgraded on a regular basis. Then there's a communication gap between the system users and system personnel. I hope you remember our discussion where we talked about the database, and there I told you that the entity who is the most important is the database user, because ultimately you are designing the database or you are designing the applications for the user. And the same is the case here with the information system. They are installed not because the company wants to look like a tech-savvy company, but because there are people who require it, right? There are users who require it, and their efficiency can be improved by installing an information system for them. So naturally, who are going to use this information system? The users are going to use it, not the designer. He only has to design the system, not the developer who is doing the programming. He only has to do the programming, but the users are going to use it on a regular basis. So when you are planning for the information system, ensure that there is sufficient communication between the users and the system personnel, the ones who are going to design and maintain it, the designers, the developers, the programmers, the database administrators. So there has to be proper communication between the two, so that they can understand the requirements of the user, and they come up with a system which fulfills those requirements. Coming up with a system, wonderful system, but if it does not fulfill the requirements, if it does not satisfy the needs of the user, it's not going to be a successful information system, and it is also not going to be adopted by the users. So you have to look into the requirements of the users as a system personnel, and then accordingly design the system, accordingly program it, accordingly code it, right? And this is one very important issue. If there's a communication gap between them, then probably the system could be a wonderful one, but it would not serve the needs of the users, and it would fail. It would not be able to get their buy-in. Information system should fit in with business strategy. So you should have an information system which fits in with your business strategy, right? For example, supposing one of your business strategies is to retain the existing customer and try to upgrade them to a higher product, to a costlier product, or trying to cross-sell to them. So for example, if somebody has purchased cars, so you would want to cross-sell, you would want to sell car accessories, right? So what are car accessories? For example, the alloy wheel. Or let's say let me take an example of a mobile phone. So somebody has purchased a mobile phone, you would want him to also purchase the protective skin on which is basically installed on the mobile phone on the screen to provide it sufficient safety from damage. So you would want the person who is purchasing the mobile phone to also purchase the gorilla skin, right? Again, you would want a person who has purchased a mobile phone which was worth rupees 5,000 today, you would want him to upgrade to maybe rupees 10,000 mobile phone in 2 years time. So upselling and cross-selling, this is one way in which you expand your business. Don't you think you would require an information system which stores, which maintains a record of all your ex-customers? Because naturally you will have to call them up and tell them, okay boss, 2 years ago you had purchased this particular mobile phone, now there is an improved version, it costs you 8,000, but it is going to give you much more, it is going to provide you much more functionality than the rupees 5,000 phone, kindly upgrade. So you have to call him up. For that you need a phone number, you need to have the information of the customer, the customer data with you, and for that you require a different kind of information system, right? So the information system should be able to fit in with your business strategy. Here the strategy was to sell more to the existing customers, so naturally you need to have a record of the existing customers, and the information system should be able to store that record, not only capture as well as store that record, right? Then again, there are budgetary and time constraints in developing the complex information systems. The management information systems, they require a lot of investment and they require a considerable amount of time. So not only in the development of the system but also in the implementation. You cannot implement it on the very first day. You will have to implement it in a gradual fashion. There has to be training provided to the users. There has to be training provided to the ones who would be actually entering the data into the information system. So you require some time, and naturally there would be a lot of cost involved also, and that is why this again is a challenge for the information system planning, right? Now let us talk about the critical success factors in information system planning, and most of them would flow from our discussion here, right? So ensure that the information system is as per your business strategy. It suits your business strategy. We have discussed this, and there should be top management commitment also, and we have discussed this point earlier also, wherein we talked about how important it is for you to ensure the success of the information system, and to ensure that success you need to have commitment from the top management, and we have discussed how to ensure that there is continued top management commitment and support, right? So now this is one more thing that you'll have to ensure: top management commitment, because when they are committed to the new information system that you have planned and that you are trying to implement, then they would also provide sufficient resources. And we have seen that information system basically requires a lot of resources. The budget requirements are high, so that budget would only be provided to you when the top management is committed to the new information system and they feel that they are convinced that it is of benefit to the organization. Again, one more thing that you have to keep in your mind is that you have to do a comprehensive assessment of cost of technology. See, I hope you remember that we have discussed that you go for an information system only and only when the benefits are more than the cost. So you have to do this cost benefit analysis. It does not make sense for a very small business, a perchun wala with limited amount of sales in a particular month, to go for a very elaborate information system. It does not make sense for him, right? So why? Because for him the cost would be higher than the benefits. So you have to look into the cost of the technology so that you can understand what is the amount of money that you'll have to incur and whether you are going to earn more than that by installing the information system. So you'll have to do a comprehensive assessment of the cost of technology, and don't only include the installation cost, hardware and software. Also include, now this is important, many times we forget this, we only include the installation cost, the cost of the hardware or the communication devices or the software that we'll be using. We forget that we'll also have to send our users for training. We'll have to train our users, and to train them we'll have to withdraw them from work, right? So naturally this is going to be a cost to the company. The work would suffer, and then also they are going to make some mistakes, so naturally, and you need to have some trainers as well. So this is all a cost for the company. And then user acceptance. Now this again is a big cost. What if the users are not happy and they simply refuse to take to the new information system that you have implemented? It would be a big problem for you. So the user acceptance is also very important, because if they are not happy with the new information system, they would not adapt to, and even if they adapt to it, even if they adopt that new information system, they would do it grudgingly. They would not be very satisfied, and this might be a big cost for the company if the employees are not satisfied with some company move. Then also take into account the life cycle cost. Don't only talk about the installation cost, but talk about all the costs that you will have to incur over the whole life cycle of the information system. Now, you have to install right in the beginning, but then you will have to keep on doing the upgrades. You will have to keep on doing the modifications. So this is part of the life cycle cost. So how much will you have to spend over the life cycle of the information system? That is going to be your actual expenditure, not only the installation cost. So you talk about all these, they all are costs. And once you have accounted for all of them, and there are others also, I am not quoting all the examples, there are others also. Once you have accounted for all the costs, then you decide whether you go for the particular information system or not, whether you will go for this particular information system or not, depending on whether the cost is more or whether the benefits are more. Right? For that, however, you will have to do what? You will have to quantify the various kind of costs, and then you have to make this call. Which one is more? If the benefits are more, go for the information system. Otherwise, just continue the way you were doing things. Okay, so another critical success factor is to understand the impact of technology on human resources. See, the technology would certainly impact the human resources. When in Uttarakhand Parivahan Nigam, the State Road Transport Corporation, the electronic ticketing machine was being implemented. I hope you know that this is basically a transaction processing system. So when it was being implemented at that point of time, there was huge resistance from the conductors because they were getting impacted, and because of which the whole process of implementation got delayed by almost 1 year. So you have to take into account the response, the possible response of the users to the new information system, whether they are going to welcome it wholeheartedly or are they going to resist it. They are going to not adopt it, or are they going to adopt it? Are they going to welcome it? Now this is something that you will have to be able to forecast right in the beginning, and if you feel that they are going to resist this new information system, then you will have to be prepared to deal with it. How to win over them? Can you win over them by providing them incentives? So those who start using the new information system would be provided incentives. Those who don't, they would not be provided any incentive. Are you going to deal in this particular fashion, or are you going to go by the stick approach, wherein you threaten them with punishment if they don't start adopting the new information system? Or are you looking for something else? Are you going to personally go and motivate them, or are you going to show them some benefits of the new system so that they can be convinced of the merits of the new system, and they could be convinced to replace the old system by the new information system that you have implemented? So that is something that you have to plan right in the beginning. Again, one more issue which is there is the continued maintenance support. Right? So the other thing that you'll have to make sure is to provide continued maintenance to the information system, because as I said, it would require upgradations, modifications on a regular basis. So you'll have to provide that kind of support on a regular basis. Many a times in organizations having different information systems and different ways of storing data in databases, many a times there could be a problem with the database because of some virus infections. So how do you cope up with the new viruses that are coming up? So you have to have antivirus security, and you have to keep upgrading it. You have to keep changing and modifying the access to the database. So all these modifications have to be done on a regular basis, and that is why continued maintenance support is very, very important for the success of information systems, right? Okay, then thank you very much. With this we have concluded our discussion on the short and long term planning for information systems. Now we are going to move on to the systems approach, which is the core topic that we'll have to cover in this particular unit. So we'll be talking about the systems approach in the upcoming sessions, right? So thank you very much for your time.